Here's a riddle. Muslims are really entrepreneurial. In London, they may just be 15% of the population, but they own more than 30% of all businesses. And you can see that really visibly in places like Green Street or Ilford Lane. But when you look at the Times Rich List, there are only 3 entries out of the top 100 that are Muslims. So on one hand, we've got 30% of all small businesses, and then on the other, just 3% of the largest businesses in the country. So in places like Canary Wharf, we basically have 0 representation. And the scary thing, these large businesses are often working against us as a community. And this is the exact same pattern that we find in places like New York, Delhi, and all over the world. Are Muslim entrepreneurs just not ambitious enough? Or maybe our businesses are just not good enough to be massive? Where are we going wrong? And how can we actually fix this? That is precisely what I'm going to dig into in this video. And for me, honestly, this is personal. Back in 2016, I left a well-paying job in the city to start an investment firm for Muslims called Curate Capital. And we've honestly had to scrap and be creative to get going. Today, alhamdulillah, we've got a team of 40 people, 3 offices, and we manage over $150 million. But honestly, that's nowhere near enough when you compare us to the largest asset managers in the world. These guys are on trillions. And in this video, I want to figure out how we take businesses like mine and yours to becoming the most iconic and largest businesses globally. But wait, Ibrahim, should good Muslims even be aspiring to be on the Times Rich List? Folks, this isn't about aspiring to be on a list. It's about what doors wealth opens, what it makes possible and what it makes impossible. And the fact that we're nowhere when it comes to enormous businesses, it should concern us. Why? Because of this chart. The largest 7 businesses in the USA literally dwarf all of the rest of the world's businesses. There is not a single stock market outside of the USA that compares to these 7 companies combined, i.e. these 7 companies combined are bigger than the entire economies of other companies and stock markets. And none of these 7 businesses are Muslim. Big business matters, folks. It runs the world. And in the right hands, it could actually strengthen our ummah. From Uthman ibn Affan radiallahu anhu bankrolling the Battle of Tabuk to Elon Musk bankrolling Trump, this is a story as old as time itself. Only we're not the main actors anymore. And if we can crack this code from going from lots of small businesses to larger businesses, there are a whole range of wider things that logically follow as well. More zakat, more halal alternatives, more money circulating within the ummah. That is all within our grasp. Okay, so now we agree we want to make this 3% of large businesses become something more like 30% of the large businesses that we have with the small entrepreneurs in London. What's the issue here? Well, we thought rather than you listening from me with my own biases, why don't we literally just ask business owners? And this is what they had to say.
The main reason stopping Muslim businesses from scaling is the lack of holistic funding.
Funding.
Definitely funding.
Fundraising. So I don't know what you heard from all of that, but what I heard was the words funding, or more precisely, the complete lack of it. And look, those who run businesses will completely get this immediately. But for those who don't, why is funding so important to the growth of a business? Well, because funding is the thing that you need to actually get going with the growth. Let's say you own a chip shop and you're just about breaking even. You want to grow. How can you grow? Here are some ideas. Well, you could buy a fancy new machine that cooks 5 times faster and cheaper. That will reduce your staffing costs and your general overheads. Or you could buy 3 more chip shops and be able to negotiate much better rates with suppliers now that you have a much bigger company. Or finally, you could invest in cutting-edge science that grows your fish in a lab rather than buying it from the sea. This would actually bring down your costs dramatically because for a chip shop, the fish is the main thing. Plus, it could massively increase your business value as well because you're now valued as a tech company, and you could even sell your lab-grown fish to chip shops up and down the country. But folks, there is a catch. You are just breaking even. You don't have the cash to spend on this stuff. That machine that we talked about, it'll cost £250,000. Those 3 more chip shops that you want to buy, they'll cost you at least £1 million. That fish growing idea, that'll cost you £1 million up front and then several million pounds after that over the next few years. You have to spend to grow. But if you don't have the cash, you can't spend. And if you don't spend, you can't grow. So we just need to give Muslim businesses cash, right? Kind of. But it's a bit more complicated than that. You see, different businesses need different types of financing. Let's go back to that chip shop example. There were 3 ideas on the table. There was buying a machine, there was buying more shops, and then there was creating brilliant technology to grow fish in a lab. Now, the funding for a machine is actually quite a low risk investment, as there is a hard asset, this machine, that funders can have recourse to and get if the repayments stop. This kind of funding is what I loosely call debt funding or fixed return funding. Now, buying the shops, on the other hand, is a little bit more risky. Sure, there are still hard assets involved in buying a business, but ultimately the success and failure of the acquisition will be based on how successfully the buyer will run these newly acquired chip shops. They are a business. There are investors, by the way, who are willing to take this risk, and they are called private equity investors. And then finally, you've got the riskiest idea of all, and that is the idea that if it comes off, could unlock untold riches for this humble chip shop owner, and that is the lab-grown fish. But it's also very high risk, and it could go completely to zero and the business could go bust. And you know what? There are funders available even to fund these crazy ideas as well, and they are called venture capitalists. So you've got 3 different types of funding, 3 different types of funders doing 3 different types of things. So we've got fixed return funding, we've got private equity funding, and then we've finally got the wild west of investment, we've got venture capital funding. Now, each of these fundings are actually pretty hard to find for Muslims in a halal package. The most commonly available today is actually the riskiest of them, the venture capital funding. We offer this at Curate via our venture capital fund, and so do many other Muslim country-based venture capitalists and angel investment networks across the world. Some of these we've shared here. Private equity, on the other hand, is much rarer, and there's a desperate need for it because this is more for traditional businesses. And there are many more of them out there. And we actually have launched a pilot project where we pumped in over £10 million into a chain of pharmacies in England. You can find out more about that entire project in this video over here, as well as our explanation of how halal private equity funding is available and can work for certain businesses. Now, fixed return funding is the funding that is actually the rarest of the lot for Muslims. And of course, that's because all bank-based lending is based on interest, and that's where fixed return funding comes from these days. But you know the crazy thing? This is the funding that is the most versatile and it can actually help the most number of businesses. The 3 businesses that I mentioned on the Times Rich list with Muslim founders, supermarkets, wholesalers, and construction. All of these businesses actually rely on fixed return funding more than any other type of funding to manage the cash flows, to manage inventory, and to manage the payment of invoices. If there was more of this type of funding available, then perhaps we would actually see many more halal funded Bestways and Asdas popping up and down the country and across the world. And so folks, it's precisely with this thinking in mind that we've actually launched our US dollar income fund. The goal behind this fund is to provide asset-backed funding on a fixed return basis to companies across the globe so that we can facilitate sharia-compliant fixed return funding in the West for the first time at scale. The fund has already invested around $10 million to date. That's returning around 9.5% to investors. That's backing companies in the Middle East, in the UK, in the USA, as long as some of the more emerging markets as well. This is one small effort that we are making, but there are others out there who are forging a similar path. People like Funding Souk and Gordus and Irad, but we need many, many more to join this fight, and that's where you come in. Every one of us has a role to play, and you too can do 4 things that can help us create more Muslim-owned scale businesses in the future. First, you should buy from Muslim businesses as much as possible. Support them with your spending. And if they are not up to scratch, give them robust feedback so that they can improve. Second, you should invest in funding Muslim businesses across venture capital, private equity, and fixed return funding. There's our own platform, Curate Capital, and there are many other platforms that I have mentioned already in this video as well. Make sure that your investments are not just parked in the stock market with the largest companies in the world, such as the Amazon, Microsoft, Googles, and Netflixes of the world. I'm not saying don't invest in them, but make sure a portion of your money is actually flowing back to our community where we need it the most, where we can actually benefit ourselves and our offspring for the future as well. The third thing that you can do is you can make dua, because dua is the weapon of the believer that can make the impossible possible. So we should never underestimate that. And then the final thing that you can do is you can share this video with your friends and your family so more entrepreneurs see this and are inspired to go on their own journey of scaling to become the largest businesses in the world for the right reasons. And finally, folks, do not forget the why that we started with. These 7 companies are the largest in the world. And if you actually look in their history, they have all benefited from a variety of venture capital, private equity, and fixed return funding. And all of them continue to do so till this very day. Funding is part and parcel of becoming an enormous business in the 21st century. That game is being played out on the pitch right now. The question is, will the Muslim community get their kit on and go out to play as well? Until next time, Assalamu alaikum.